UFC Fight Night Yusuff versus Barboza is this weekend. I'm going to give you a prediction breakdown of all 12 fights on this card, starting with Ashley Yoder versus Emily Ducote. Oh my goodness. All right. We have a few of these women's fights on this card that I'll kind of just briefly go over, but they're a little bit rough to talk about. So I am going to go with Emily Ducote in this matchup. Ashley Yoder, last fight was 2 years ago and lost to Jinju Frey by decision. Lost to Angela Hill, which isn't a bad loss to have, but the Jinju Frey loss 2 years ago, 35 years of age, almost 36. Emily Ducote isn't bad. I mean, her last two losses were against Lupi Godinez and Angela Hill, which honestly aren't that bad of losses at this point. So she did beat Jessica Penne, so she isn't terrible, but she's kind of in that middle area. And I think she does solid work on the feet. I think she does have a little bit of some skill on the ground. I mean, coming in to her fight with Jessica Penne, I was kind of hyping her up a little bit because she did have a really nice KO in her who was it? Daniel Taylor, I want to say. It was a head kick. It was a really nice KO, but since then, I mean, she hasn't looked too impressive after that Jessica Penne fight. So I'm going to go with Emily Ducote. I'm just kind of banking on her just not being as bad as Ashley Yoder in this matchup because Ashley Yoder hasn't fought in 2 years and is 36 years of age. So I am going to go with Emily Ducote in this matchup. Up the card, we have Chris Gutierrez versus Alateng Heili. I am going to go Chris Gutierrez in this matchup. Chris Gutierrez is coming off a loss to Pedro Munoz, which, again, isn't a bad loss. I'll say that quite a bit in these videos, but really isn't that bad of a loss. Pedro Munoz is very solid. I'm not going to really discuss the Sean O'Malley fight because it was a whole bunch of nothingness. He was just leg kicking a lot, but Pedro Munoz has shown to be a very solid fighter at this point in his career. I think some people thought he beat Chito Vera as well. So a lot of people think Pedro Munoz kind of in that area where he's very much solid in that top 10 of bantamweight. I'm pretty sure he is still top 10. If not, he's probably like right outside of it. And Chris Gutierrez coming off a win against Frankie Edgar going into that Munoz fight, and then before them beat Dana Bakary. Alateng Heili beat Chad and Helliger. I'm really going to mess up some of these names. Kevin Kroom. I mean, these aren't the best of opponents. Went to a draw with Gustavo Lopez, which is not a good look. Lost to Casey Kenny, which 3 years ago, decent loss to have, I guess, but a draw to Gustavo Lopez. And since then, Kevin Kroom, Chad and Hellinger. I think Chris Gutierrez more recently has shown to be at least a little bit better against higher ranked opponents. And he honestly, I think he is ranked, isn't he? I think he's like, if not like right outside the rankings of the top 15. I just see Chris Gutierrez as a very highly ranked, unranked guy, if that kind of makes any sense. Like on the whole unranked spectrum, I don't remember if he actually is ranked because Tapology doesn't use actual UFC rankings, so I don't know at the top of my head if he is. He'll probably be like 14 or 15 or whatever, but I see him more as like a high level unranked fighter. And Alateng Heili, I don't know if I see that in him yet. It's really just a draw there, and then a loss to a Casey Kenny, who is like a similar level at that point as like a Chris Gutierrez. So I am going to go with Chris Gutierrez in this matchup. I don't know if he gets the finish, maybe like a second round finish, but in all honesty, I can see him just taking this one to a decision, just using his distance, beating up the legs of Alateng Heili, and again, just using that distance and just outpointing him in this matchup to a 3-round decision. So I am going to go Chris Gutierrez by decision, 93% picked by Tapology as well. Up the card, we have Irina Alekseeva versus Melissa Dixon. I am going to go with Irina Alekseeva in this one, and I don't know if that's going to be necessarily a controversial pick. Just what I saw out of Melissa Dixon's last fight against Daria, Zelet. I'm not going to try and say that. But in her last fight against a really good opponent, 7-0, she did get the win, but it really wasn't that good of a win. I'm going to be completely honest. Like, she did not look good in that fight at all. Like, she kind of just pulled it out at the end. Pretty decently bad stoppage in that one. But Irina Alekseeva was able to submit Stephanie Egger, which is actually relatively impressive. I thought leading up to the fight, I was like, all right, this lady's just not that good in general. Like, she hadn't fought for like a year before then, a year and a half, I think exactly it was. And then like to her way, and I think she missed weight or something, and she was like dancing and like making these weird faces at the weight. I was like, what the hell is this lady even doing? Like, why is she in the UFC? But she actually looked decently impressive against Stephanie Egger. She isn't great on the feet. Melissa Dixon will definitely be better on the feet here, but she's like, she'll kind of just walk forward and just start swinging. I guess like it's not necessarily great technique, but she's very good on the ground. She ended up like rolling for a knee bar and ended up getting it against a very good women's fighter on the ground in Stephanie Egger. So I thought that was pretty impressive. I think if she puts the pressure on Melissa Dixon, I think Dixon's going to look for a clinch. And I think Irina Alekseeva is going to be able to use some of that sambo that she has and get her to the ground and end up submitting her in the, I'll say, late first round, maybe second round. It is women's MMA at the end of the day, so I can see this go to a decision. But I am just going to say Irina Alekseeva by a late, I'll say second round submission. I'll say, yeah, early second round submission. I think she gets it done. I think in the first round, she doesn't quite get the submission, but she does establish a little bit of control, and she does win that first round. They are both relatively at a decently older age, I guess, to be starting their UFC career, 32 years of age. I'm sorry, 33 years of age and 32 years of age. So they are relatively older to just be starting. But again, I just think I'm going to lean more on Irina Alekseeva in this matchup to kind of just find that submission over Melissa Dixon against, after especially beating Stephanie Edgar by submission. So that's how I'm going to rely on this matchup. A lot of people are picking Melissa Dixon on Tapology because they see the win over Daria in this matchup, but it really wasn't that great of a win. I'm going to be completely honest. So 42% of them are picking Alekseeva. Alekseeva hasn't looked crazy impressive either. Like, we've seen one fight from her. We kind of want to see a little bit more before we define her as anything in this division. So it is more of a prove it fight still for Alekseeva in this matchup. So we'll see what happens. But I'm going to go Alekseeva by submission. Up the card, we have Terrance Mckinney versus Brendon Marotte. Marotte. I don't know how to say his name, or that last name at least. I am going to go with Terrance Mckinney. I think he was supposed to fight. What's his name again? I'm drawing a blank on it. Chris Duncan, which would have been a little bit more of an interesting fight. I probably would have still taken Terrance Mckinney in that matchup because he is a little bit more explosive, and Chris Duncan hasn't looked that impressive, although he has gotten the wins. Hasn't looked crazy impressive in his last couple of fights. So I probably was still going to go with Terrance Mckinney, but I am going to still go with Terrance Mckinney here. Brendon Marotte's last fight was a win over a guy who is 11-20, and Lionel Young won that one by rear naked choke. 3-1, 8-4, lost to a 5-1 opponent. Beat a 5-8-1 opponent. So, I mean, he's not fighting the best guys here. Doesn't look great either. Comes from the New England cartel, so he does have a really good gym around him. 26 years of age, still relatively young, but I think this is more, we're going to give Terrance Mckinney something to eat here, I guess, in a very cringe way of saying it. I think Terrance McKinney is just going to run through this guy. Maybe he does show something out there, but again, he isn't fighting the best opponents, and I kind of will just rely on Terrance McKinney to get this win. Terrance McKinney is not ass. Like, his losses are against Nazim Sadiqov, who's a very technical fighter, especially all around. You see the guys that he does train with over there in with Aljo, Marab, Favola. So like a lot of very talented guys that he does train with. And you can kind of understand why he did beat Terrance McKinney. He's a very technical fighter himself. Ismail Bonfim, he's a Bonfim brother. Like, again, another guy who's very technical, very good all around. So I won't blame him too much there. And then Drew Dober, he also lost to. So these aren't bad losses. He's beating some of these newer guys in the UFC. So I am going to go with Terrance McKinney by first round finish. I'll probably say KO. I don't think he gets a submission here. I think he finishes them up on the feet, and then wins by TKO. So I'm going to go with Terrance McKinney by finish. Up the card, we have Tainara Lisboa versus Ravena Oliveira. I am going to go with Tainara Lisboa in this matchup. I think she has looked a little bit more impressive in her fights than Ravena Oliveira. Lisboa ended up submitting Jessica Rose Clark, and now you think like, oh, everyone has submitted Jessica Rose Clark at this point. I just think in their fights, just looking at them with the eye test, I think Lisboa does look a little bit better, and the odds kind of represent that a little bit more here. Again, at the end of the day, it is a women's MMA fight, if I could say that properly. It is a women's MMA fight, so anything can really happen, but I think it's pretty representative of what the bookies are looking at, what people are looking at in this matchup. 81% for Lisboa in this one, 68% by decision, 21% by submission. I think she does win this one by decision. I think she just does enough, gets the points, gets some of the takedowns. I think if it does stay on the feet, I think she does look decent there as well. Maybe Oliveira will have a little bit of an edge, but again, I think she'll just look a lot better. 32 years of age, so she's entering the prime of her career. I just haven't seen enough out of Oliveira to where I can feel a little bit confident in her, and I just don't feel that way about her in this matchup. So I am going to go with Lisboa by a decision. Up the card, we have Darren Elkins versus TJ Brown. I am going to go TJ Brown in this matchup. Darren Elkins is getting very old. His last fight was 9 months ago against, well, almost, I guess, 10 months ago against Jonathan Pierce, where the hell has Jonathan Pierce been at? I'm going to be serious there. Like I'm kind of waiting to see him fight again. I don't know if he has a fight schedule. I think he might. I don't remember exactly who it was. Maybe I'm wrong, though. I'm kind of waiting for Jonathan Pierce to find another matchup. So hopefully we can get him fighting soon. There's a couple other guys in the UFC that are like that. I'm like, okay, these guys are prospects. Let's get them going, but haven't seen them in a while. But Jonathan Pierce, he lost to him by decision. Jonathan Pierce is a very good fighter, probably fringe top 15 at featherweight, so that isn't necessarily a bad loss to have. But TJ Brown looked very impressive against Bill Algeo in his last fight, and I think he actually landed some really good shots in that first round before getting finished in that second due to rear naked choke. I think he got hit with like a lead elbow or something like that. You couldn't really see it when you were actually watching it live because it was just so fast and like kind of out of the ordinary, like out of a unique stance. I guess that's Bill Algeo, very unique fighting style, and you can't really see some of that stuff. So that's why I say Bill Algeo is very underrated. And I thought the fact that TJ Brown did really well and did a really good job at landing on Bill Algeo was very impressive. And I think he can land really well against Darren Elkins here. Darren Elkins doesn't have much left in the tank here. He's almost 40 years of age. Doesn't look great. TJ Brown will have a 1-inch reach advantage here, and I think 33 years of age will be the younger fighter, 6 years younger. I'm just going to edge it to him in this one. I don't think, even if he gets taken down, I think he can definitely get back up to his feet. I think he'll just be better on the feet. Like if you're able to hit Bill Algeo, like you saw what Alexander Hernandez was able to do against Bill Algeo. He wasn't really able to land too cleanly on Bill Algeo, and I thought TJ Brown being able to land on him, making it really hard for Bill Algeo in that matchup was a really good sign of TJ Brown isn't horrible. So I'm going to go with TJ Brown. He only lost to Shayilan Nordin-BK, and I know, if I'm remembering correctly, who did Shayilan lose to recently? Because I was like kind of on his back a little bit more. Like he's a pretty good fighter. Who did he lose to? Steve Garcia. So I don't know. It just is what it is with this 145-pound division. I thought he looked impressive in his last matchup, and you kind of can only go off of their last matchups. So I just think he'll be a little bit better in this matchup against Darren Elkins. 57% pick by Tapology, which is very interesting. I kind of want to see what the final odds are on this matchup, because maybe TJ Brown can be a definite steal in this matchup. So I'm going to go with TJ Brown here by, I'll say decision. There's definitely a possible chance for a finish in like the third round, maybe late second round from TJ Brown, but I am going to go with TJ Brown in this one. Up the card, we have Christian Rodriguez versus Cameron Saaiman. I am going to go Cameron Saaiman. Christian Rodriguez is a very, very solid fighter. You saw that in his last fight on the ground, especially against Raul Rosas Jr. A lot of people thought he was just going to go out there and dominate Christian Rodriguez, myself included, on the ground and get that submission. Now, he did have some really good success in the first round, but Christian Rodriguez, as that fight went on, showed really good wrestling and really good grappling himself, even had Raul Rosas in some bad situations in the grappling, where we thought Raul Rosas Jr. being like 18 years old or something like that, as talented in the grappling, was just going to steamroll him a little bit, get that early finish, but ended up not happening. So Christian Rodriguez kind of spoiled a little bit of a hype train out of Raul Rosas there. And I think Cameron Saaiman himself, a very, very good prospect. It looked really good against Terrance Mitchell. Now it is Terrance Mitchell, but he just completely dominated him in the wrestling, beat Mana Martinez. It was only really close. Like these fights, he kind of just got the, what would you even call it? Like a legal shot bug, I'll say. I mean, Steven Kozlov, I think he need him when he's a grounded opponent. Mana Martinez was like some nut shots because his leg kicks or whatever, or thigh kicks were like moving up because Mana Martinez was like dipping down into him. So I didn't really hold that too much against him, but his last fight was relatively clean. He completely dominated Terrance Mitchell. And I think in this match with Cameron Saaiman, very good in the wrestling, very good in the grappling. I think he'll definitely be competitive a little bit more there, and I still think Saaiman could possibly just take down Rodriguez and maybe establish some control. I don't think he's going to like completely maul him on the ground and destroy him. Maybe that's left to be seen there, but I think if this fight stays on the feet, Cameron Saaiman's going to do really well on the feet. I think he's going to be a lot better than Christian Rodriguez on the feet. He has a lot more tools on the feet, a lot of good kicks. I think he is a kickboxer himself, so he's going to have a lot of kicks at his in his toolbox or whatever. I need to stop saying some of these cringe lines or whatever, but he does have a lot of tools on the feet that Christian Rodriguez does not have, and I think he can maintain a good distance, and I don't think he's going to end up finishing Christian Rodriguez. I'm going to see this one going to a decision. Some people are saying Cameron Saaiman by finish, by TKO KO. I don't know if I necessarily see that. I think decision is probably a little bit more of a confident bet here. I'm going to go with Saaiman, 79% picked by Tapology here. Again, I think he's just going to be better on the feet. I do think he does have the skills on the ground to potentially mix in some takedowns and make it a little bit tough for Christian Rodriguez in this matchup. So I am going to go with Cameron Saaiman by a decision. These odds are actually relatively close. Is Cameron Saaiman still an underdog? I haven't checked the odds. Like, these get released a few days ago, or have been released a few days ago. So definitely look out for this one. If Cameron Saaiman is still an underdog, I think that's a steal in this one. Now, it is going to be like a decently competitive matchup. Like, both of you guys are pretty young, decent prospects themselves, but I do think Cameron Saaiman does get the win here. So up the card, we have Edgar Chairez versus Daniel Lacerda. I am going to go with Edgar Chairez. I believe this fight is getting rescheduled after there was like a, what would you even call it? Like a no contest or whatever because of the stoppage. They called it a premature stoppage. It is kind of controversial because the way it happened was, what was it? Like a standing guillotine? I don't remember exactly what it was because this fight wasn't even that long ago. So I probably should remember it. But he had him in a submission. His arm basically dropped. The ref stopped it thinking that he was out cold or unconscious at least a little bit. So they stopped the fight there. But I guess he wasn't actually out. So they're rescheduling this one. Daniel Lacerda was likely going to get cut. So I guess he's kind of getting saved here. He's a very entertaining fighter. So maybe he can pull something out of the bag here. But Edgar Chairez pretty much got the first round submission. Let's be real. I think in a lot of people's eyes, it looked like a submission victory because you do see the arm kind of just drop. Like, you tell the ref like you're good, and then you see the arm kind of just go limp a little bit. You think the fight is over. Similar to like Askren, Robbie Lawler. The same thing kind of happened there with Robbie Lawler where his arm went limp a little bit. It wasn't even as limp as the Lacerda fight. The Lacerda fight actually looked completely limp, but similar kind of situation there. I think Edgar Chairez does win this fight again. It is going to be at 130 pounds, not 125, or at least that's what it's saying on Tapology. So because I think it is rescheduled relatively recently, 3 days, 3 hours ago. I don't think this is actually correct. They probably haven't updated their system, but maybe it's actually correct. How long ago was this fight? What the hell? Damn, time flies, huh? Yeah, this was in September. I don't know why they haven't updated. They're thinking like 3 days, 3 hours ago. There's no way. But I do think Edgar Chairez does get the submission in the first round. It is a very dangerous opponent in Daniel Lacerda, but again, I thought Edgar Chairez looked really good against Tatsuro Taira, and I think he's going to be able to out-grapple him, do good on the feet. Edgar Chairez is a decent prospect himself. I think he does get the finish over Daniel Lacerda here because Daniel Lacerda, very good in the first round, does have a lot of explosive, like a very explosive fighting style in general in that first round, but then he starts to tire out, gets very sloppy, and I think Chairez can definitely take advantage of that. A lot of people are taking Chairez in this one, 91% pick by Tapology, 50% by submission, 29% by TKO KO. I think it is Chairez by submission. It would be kind of interesting if this one does go to a decision because they have already felt each other in the octagon, but we also saw, I guess it is heavyweight, so I won't even compare it, but what was it, the Tafa fight? And his whatever his name was, he ended up getting KO'd, but they redid it because of the eye poke. But it is heavyweight, so I won't really compare it to that. But anyways, I think Chairez does get the submission win. Lacerda's on a really big loss streak here, and I just think Chairez is a very solid prospect himself. So I'm going Chairez by submission. Up the card, we have Michel Pereira versus Andre Petroski. Very interesting one because Michel Pereira is actually moving up to 185. I think he did miss weight for the Wonder Boy fight, and then there's a bunch of controversy with that over whether he got paid or whatever, or for Wonder Boy, not Pereira. But Andre Petroski's last fight looked not great on the feet against Gerald Meerschaert. I think in the early rounds he actually looked decent, but as this fight went on, GM3 looked really good on the feet against him, which is kind of a red flag here, especially against a guy in Michel Pereira who is coming up from 170, where I do think guys at 170 are a lot better than 185. I think just skill-wise, speed, there's a big difference there. I think there's going to be a lot more, like a big speed advantage, explosive, how explosive Pereira is in his fights. I think that's going to be a really big advantage here. He does have some decent wrestling and grappling, so I don't know if the Petroski takedowns are going to work too well in this matchup, and I think Pereira, who's again very explosive, is going to be able to land some really good shots on Petroski and potentially get a finish. I don't think we have seen Petroski finish at all. He's 10-1. Well, I guess he did get finished against Brian Battle on, what was it? the Ultimate Fighter season 29. He did get finished in that one by submission, and did lose to Aaron Jeffrey, who I believe is in Bellator or whatever, 14-4, probably going to get a title shot soon, I believe. I don't know. I'm getting into the other stuff, but has looked decent. I don't think he gets the takedowns on Pereira. If he does, they'll probably be early on in this fight, but I think Michel Pereira ends up landing some really good shots on Petroski. And if we're looking at a finish, I think it'll likely be the second or third round. I know these guys both kind of gassed out a little bit more, so maybe it is just going to be a slugfest and just a complete scrap in the second and third rounds, which would be pretty fun to watch. But I don't know. I don't trust Petroski to be faster than Pereira. I don't trust Petroski to have more power. He does have some decent power in his hands, but I think Pereira is just going to be a little bit more explosive. I think Pereira is just going to be a little bit more wild there, and it's going to be a little bit too much for Petroski, who did struggle a little bit with GM3 on the feet. So I am going to go with Pereira. I'll say by finish. I'm not confident in it. Second or third round. I can just see this being a scrap, though. I don't know. Again, the chin of Petroski isn't bad. Like it's a pretty solid chin, so we don't know what that's going to look like when he does feel the power of Pereira. So I can't really speak too much on it. So maybe I won't say finish. Maybe I'll say decision more. But I do think there's a really big possibility of a TKO finish by Pereira in this one towards the later rounds, like the late second or third round here for this matchup. So I'm going to go Pereira by decision, I'll say. 72% by Tapology here, but I do think if he does get the finish, it'll be second or third round. I don't see him getting the finish early first, but who knows? Again, he's very explosive. That's where all his cardio might dump out. So Pereira definitely has Pereira in general does have a lot of finishing potential through 1, 2, and 3. So it is kind of a hard way to check on where he's at. So I am going to go Pereira by decision. I'll stick with decision. I think it does become a little bit of a slugfest towards the end of the fight, and it does get a little bit more interesting. But again, Pereira does have a really good shot at finishing Petroski in the later rounds. Up the card, we have Jonathan Martinez versus Adrian Yanez. A very, very tough fight to predict. I think this one's probably 50-50. I think I might side with Jonathan Martinez in this one. I'm a really big fan of Adrian Yanez. I did pick him to beat Rob Font, but he did end up getting finished in that first round against Rob Font relatively early. They just went right at each other and started scrapping. But the thing with Jonathan Martinez, he has looked pretty impressive recently. Like a win over Said Nurmagomedov is actually extremely impressive. Said Nurmagomedov is a really, really good fighter. Like you've seen him just run through some of these lower ranked guys, especially unranked guys. Like you've seen him run through these guys. And Jonathan Martinez ended up getting a decision win. Beat Cub Swanson as well. Looked really good in that match. Completely destroyed him in that match. And Cub Swanson has looked decent, especially recently. I think it's a little controversial. Maybe you could probably argue that he did beat Hakeem Dawodu. He did get the win on paper, but it was actually a very close fight. So he isn't a bad fighter. Like this isn't like an old out of time Cub Swanson. I know he did move down to make this fight, so I guess there's that factor. But again, that still is a really good win to have. I don't know. I think Jonathan Martinez can eat up the legs of Adrian Yanez. Adrian Yanez has shown to maybe have these problems in his fights where he does take a little bit longer to get these finishes in the fights. Davey Grant, he probably should have lost that fight. I won't go Tony Kelly. Randy Costa had a lot of success with them in the first round. Randy Costa is the best first round fighter in the UFC. No, he's not even in the UFC, but I'm not going to say he's the best first round fighter either. But really good in the first round. Looked really good against Adrian Yanez himself. I think Martinez can definitely work the legs of Adrian Yanez and then just land some really good shots on Yanez. I can see this one going to a decision. Pretty 50-50 fight. I actually might want to switch over to Yanez in this one now that I think about it, because I'm not confident in either one. But honestly, I think I am just going to side with Martinez. He did beat Said Nurmagomedov, and again, he's just no joke there. And I think he is beating some of these higher level opponents. And when you see Adrian Yanez take on some of these higher level opponents, like he beat Tony Kelly, got the finish there, beat Randy Costa, got the finish there, looked rough in that first round, beat Gustavo Lopez by finish. Probably should have lost to Davey Grant and then lost to Rob Font, who are some of these higher level fighters. And we saw Jonathan Martinez beat a high level fighter in Said Nurmagomedov, beat a higher level fighter in Cub Swanson. I know he's a little bit older and it was down a division, but again, skill for skill, he looked a lot better in that fight than Cub Swanson. So I am going to go with Jonathan Martinez. I don't think he gets the finish over Adrian Yanez. I think if he does win this one, it'll probably be by decision. So I am going to go with Jonathan Martinez in this matchup. 55% picked by Tapology, 77% by decision. I will be rooting for Yanez. If he does win, I'll be pretty happy. I won't be mad that he destroyed my prediction here. So I am going to go with Martinez by decision. Of the card, we have Jennifer Maia versus Viviane Araujo. I am going to go with Jennifer Maia in this matchup. She actually looked really good against Casey O'Neill in her last fight. I picked Casey O'Neill. Casey O'Neill got absolutely destroyed in that one, and she beat her by decision. Beat Marina Moroz. All right win, I guess, by decision there. Lost to Amanda Fiora. Lost to Katlyn Chookagian. She's only really losing to some of these top fighters. Like, she's beating the fighters outside of, like, the top 5 or whatever. Lost to, Valentina Shevchenko, Katlyn Chookagian twice, Amanda Fiora, Liz Caramuche, from what I think she's a top ranked fighter in Bellator or whatever. Isn't she like a champ or whatever? I don't really pay attention too much to the women's division over in Bellator, but she did win by leg kick, I guess, recently. So she does have good wins over some not so top ranked fighters, I guess I'll say. Like, anyone outside the top 3, she's game. But your Shevchenkos, your Chookagian, she'll definitely struggle a little bit. Manon Fiorot, who I think is probably top 3, top 4. Out of the women in that division, she's going to struggle a little bit more. But Viviane Araujo, I'm really almost just butchered the crap out of that. Lost to Amanda Ribas in her last fight, got worked in that one pretty badly. Lost to Alexa Grasso, the champion, by decision, in like that 5-round main event, which was a really weird main event that they had. I think, wasn't Viviane Araujo like on the prelims in her last fight or whatever, and now she's the co-main? I don't know. UFC is really weird. Beat Andrea Lee, which isn't a bad win to have. Actually, a pretty solid win to have. Lost to Katlyn Chookagian as well. Beat Roxanne Modafferi. So she's beating some of these lower level fighters. But I think on a scale of, they're very similar in where there's a certain tier where they're losing and there's a certain tier that they're winning against. Maia is anyone outside the top 3. Araujo is anyone outside what? We'll say top 10 maybe. She'll definitely beat. So I don't know. I am going to go with Jennifer Maia. She'll probably win this one by decision. She's looked a little bit more impressive. She does really well against higher level competition, and we haven't really seen that against, or at least with, Viviane Araujo. So I'm going to go with Maia, 84% by decision. I'm trying to roll the R on the Araujo. I can barely get it sometimes, but it's not even that good of a roll for the R. So anyways, I'm going with Jennifer Maia by decision. Off the card, we have Sodiq Yusuff versus Edson Barboza in our main event, and this is a pretty decently tough matchup to predict here because I think this one can kind of go either way. A lot of people are picking Edson Barboza, or at least from what I've been seeing, because a lot of underdogs are getting picked, or at least winning in these main events, whether it's fluky or not. It's definitely very interesting. There's a lot of underdogs winning in their main events. So I am going to go with Sodiq Yusuff in this matchup. I think Edson Barboza, his last fight, did win against Billy Quarantillo, won with a pretty brutal KO with a knee. He was kind of getting worked a little bit early on. Like, it was pretty fast-paced, and that's what I was expecting out of Billy Q. And I was expecting, as that fight went on, Billy Q was going to be able to work on because of the cardio of Edson Barboza. At 38 years of age, like, he's in tremendous shape. But we do know, like, if it is a 5-round fight, I'm kind of expecting Barboza to slow down a little bit eventually in this fight, especially towards the end of it. And I think Sodiq Yusuff can definitely rely on his wrestling a little bit more. I know the Alekseeva fight wasn't that impressive, but I think he can definitely work the clinch with Edson Barboza in this one a little bit more, eliminate the distance that Barboza will have, because he will have a 4-inch reach advantage in this matchup. And I know Sodiq Yusuff has been out for a year, and his last fight was the win over Don Shainis, which is really weird. I think that was a short notice fight anyway, so I won't get too... was it a short notice fight? I can't remember, actually. Actually, kind of want to double check there. I'm pretty sure it was a short notice fight. Can't remember who was supposed to fight. Wasn't it like a... I don't want to say if it's wrong or anything. Maybe it wasn't a short notice fight. Maybe he's just looking for an opponent. I don't know. That was one of the weirder fights that we did get. Yeah, he did fight Don Shainis, just completely destroyed him. Haven't seen him in a year. I think it was like a spine injury too, so that was pretty rough. He's 30 years of age, so he is entering his prime of his career. I think he can eliminate the distance that Barboza will have on the feet here by clinching, possibly looking for takedowns. I think Edson Barboza, as this fight goes on, will definitely tire out, and if Sodiq Yusuff can definitely mix in his offense, survive the early rounds a little bit more, kind of calm down Barboza a little bit, get him to scrap, but be defensively aware, don't get knocked out, don't get damaged. I mean, it's a lot easier said than done, but eventually work the clinch, tire out Barboza, work at a decently high pace, and try and get him to the ground and beat him up there. Because even Bryce Mitchell was able to hurt Barboza with some of his wrestling when he was taking him down. And I know Bryce Mitchell is like a different caliber wrestler than Sodiq Yusuff, but Sodiq Yusuff did actually pretty decent against Arnold Allen, beat Andre Philly, beat Gabriel Benitez, beat Alex Caceres by decision. Not going to talk about Don Shainis, but he's looked pretty decent. I think he can get the takedowns here. Work Barboza. I don't think he's going to get a finish. I think this one probably goes to decision. I can actually see Barboza winning this one. That's the tough part here, because I think this one can actually go either way. I can see myself just being completely wrong. So I'm kind of taking a flyer here for Sodiq Yusuff. Again, I just think the takedowns are just going to be a pretty big factor in this one. 38-year-old Edson Barboza in this matchup, working against a 30-year-old Sodiq Yusuff, who's going to be trying to take him down. I really don't like. And eventually, I think Barboza is going to be slowing down a little bit more. So I am going to go with Sodiq Yusuff by decision. Probably like 48-47. I don't see 49-46, but probably 48-47. I think it's going to be a pretty competitive fight. But I think as this fight goes on, I think Sodiq Yusuff will start to bank some rounds. So I am going to go with Sodiq Yusuff by decision. Tapology 62% Yusuff, 64% by decision, 25% by TKO KO, 38% Barboza, 69% TKO KO, and 23% decision. I do think Sodiq Yusuff in the boxing will probably have the advantage, but again, the length of Barboza is definitely going to be a problem here, which is why I think if Yusuff goes forward, puts the pressure on him, looks to clinch, looks to eliminate some of the distance, and then look for takedowns, I think he can look pretty impressive in this matchup. So I am going to go with Sodiq Yusuff by decision. Let me know who you guys have in this main event. Who do you guys have on this card? And I'll see you guys next time.